I'm recording.
All right. Anyway, I think I'll just start it there. Anyway, hey guys, we're here to talk to y'all about Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, all that other good stuff. That is kanji. That's kanji. Guys, we're here to talk to y'all about basically the ending of Dragon Ball Z and I guess like how it really should have ended as opposed to, the whole Oob stuff and Goku leaving his friend's family and everything again in order to go train a complete stranger and all that other stuff. I know a lot of people hate the Oob ending and I know a lot of people wish that like it would have found a different path to go, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But I just want to say before we get started, and I'll let Kanji share his opinions too, that I am not actually a Oob hater. I actually really like Oob's character. I think there's a whole lot of potential there. I did a video a couple days ago, a couple weeks, whenever this actually posts, but like of how, especially since Super's come out, how Golden Frieza actually explains Oob's power and how it still fits into the canonicity of whatever Dragon Ball is at this point, and whether or not Super is past that point or not, or even ever will. It explains why Goku's going to be so excited to fight Oob when finally, he trains him up and he's ready to fight. They're ready to fight each other despite the power growth that Goku's gotten over the course of Super. So I don't hate Oob. I'm a big fan of his to a degree. I mean, bigger than most people. But Kanji, what are your thoughts on him before we go forward?
I mean, like, if you were to ask me, honestly, like, I fucking hate, like, no, if I'm being honest, like, Oob, like, the premise of Oob, like, kind of bugs me just simply because if it was that easy for King Yama just to kind of go, okay, Goku, yes, I will rebirth this horrible, horrible bad guy as a good guy, and you can have a fight with him. Like, great, well done, King Yama. Like, thank God. Could you not have done that with every other bad guy so far? Like, it's just kind of, like, it's bizarre to me, like, and so because of that, it bugs me, and it bugs me that, like, he turns up and, like, the fight, in terms of you were just watching as Dragon Ball, the fight, like, is a good fight at the end, but it doesn't really, it's not the fight at the end of the show that kind of made me go, oh, that's a closing door moment. It's not like, there isn't a situation that it could have really built up to and kind of gone, yeah, well, that's what Dragon Ball is, that's what it all became, and just the idea with Oob doing it, I really felt like you could have had that moment with Goten fighting Trunks again or something like that, and them really kind of looking down and, like, Goten and Trunks are so powerful or something that Goku and Vegeta are both there going, whoa, okay. Like, I felt like that would have been better. Like, it would have been better to see, like, the next generation doing something to almost make Goku and Vegeta go, whoa, and then, like, maybe Goku kind of picks up Goten at the end and kind of goes, how long has that been the case?
Yeah.
And then those two fly off together, or I don't know. But regardless, I kind of feel like the idea of Oob is a little bit redundant. I don't think it was necessary.
I completely agree, and it's kind of, you hinted or touched on stuff we're going to be talking about in this video, but personally when I thought about this particular subject, I was thinking of the same boat as you. It's the whole, I like Oob as a character. I like exactly what they were trying to do, trying to make it hopeful, leave it kind of open-ended to see where it could go from here or there. Even if Toriyama was done with the story and they were going to do Dragon Ball GT regardless, I mean, we all know how that turned out. But personally, the thing about what you were saying is interesting because the one thing Super messed up on, in my opinion, is the fact that it didn't make anything like a swan song to Goku's time in the sun. Watch the original Dragon Ball Z anime, and they had like a whole episode about that. It was like, oh, time in the sun, I think. But like the whole thing is like Goku is still relevant. And they hadn't passed it off. They hadn't passed the baton off to anyone else. But like an Oob, and if they were going to, and Oob was supposed to be that person, it didn't necessarily feel right, in my opinion. Honestly, when we look at how or whatever crazy direction they went at the very end of Dragon Ball Z, the weird thing to me was the series introduced Pan and Brawl. and they'd introduced them early enough in their ages that it's theoretical that Goku and Vegeta, even being Saiyans and knowing what we know now, but not what we knew then, that they were still very much in their prime, at least for the most part.
Yeah.
They still had like a couple, like 20 years left. I feel like they could have subverted that and had Goku and Vegeta be at the very end of their prime and made Pan and Brawl a bit older. And like you were saying with Goten and Trunks fighting and being super strong and everything, it would have been so heartfelt and heartwarming to see kind of this, we're going to leave this book ended, but the story's basically over, but look at this, these girls who we've never really seen before and are usually, in Toriyama's writing style, basically, I guess they're always kind of steamrolled to be like
damsels
baby mamas, like damsels in distress or baby mamas to much more powerful men. It would have been really nice to see these girls get up to fight and like instead of Goten and Trunks actually have Pan and Brawl fighting each other in an interesting way,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one of the things is that they kind of dropped the ball on is the fact that they could have even, when they originally did it, even proposed it being slightly further into the future. They could have had, Pan and Bra be a little bit older, sort of like the same age as Goten and Trunks, and suggesting that the power levels between Bra and Pan are insurmountable to what was the difference between Goten and Trunks at the time. And so now everyone's jaw dropped to the floor, like, what? Sort of thing, and it would have been... You could have had, a really good fight between the two of them and had maybe, the first one of them turn into a Super Saiyan during the fight or something. And then, you've got, Chi-Chi faints in the audience or something. All these kind of classic cliche things that happen or something. And you could actually, in the course of the fight between Bra and Pan, if they'd made it long enough, you could have had so many little moments that are actually throwbacks to the entire series that would have made you kind of go, oh, remember when that happened between so-and-so? Recreate certain, motions that they did, and then they
Goku and Vegeta's stance.
Yeah, exactly. Goku and Vegeta stance. You could have the punch where Goku and Vegeta do to each other during the Majin Buu fight, where one fist goes into each cheek, and then it kind of parts the faces, and then you can just see the ghosts of Goku and Vegeta or something in the background, and not that they're dead, but what I mean, in terms of animation wise, and then they're comparing all of these moments. And you've got this flashback of everything that's happened in the series happening in this fight between the two of them. And then, then maybe, the other one turns Super Saiyan as well. And, everybody's just losing their freaking minds at this thing, during the entire fight. And that could have been, awesome.
Mm-hmm. And, have another one of those Vegeta, Vegeta's, stern figure. Maybe he's obviously he's in that tournament. But what if he didn't, he didn't actually go in, or Goku didn't actually participate, and they were just there to see these girls who wanted to participate actually fight. Because, Goku only participated because he wanted to fight Oob, and he wanted to actually get Oob's attention in that fight. He even cheated in order so they can fight first. And the thought was, what happens at the same time if you have these two girls who just want to fight because they want to fight, and then we see Goten and Trunks have kind of grown up. They're domesticated ladies men type of thing. They're not really interested in fighting, but you have these two girls who seem innocent at the time, and then they want to go in, they want to have fun. You're okay, this is going to be kind of a nice little throwback to the Goten and Trunks fight, and also just kind of seeing how they're going to progress. And then they show up and they're just badass and they're fighting each other, and you're saying, there's all these homages to the rest of the series and all
that
this.
That was the word I was looking for.
There's all this homage to the original parts of the series and Goku and Vegeta's rivalry and everything. And at the very end, this would be a perfect ending to me. They're fighting, we don't even get to see who wins because obviously I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
You just have Vegeta arms crossed, and something looks back at Goku and gives him a smirk, and Goku gives him a thumbs up, and then it just completely cut to black. It's done. It's over. And we get a semblance of this is the next generation. And lo and behold, and even I guess really epically, it's female Super Saiyans, and it's not Goku and Vegeta and their time is kind of past, but they're living on through these children. So I think that's like something really cool.
I would also have really liked it if they're kind of like, borderline shocked, as if it's kind of like a, whoa, okay, I didn't realize this was quite what it was going to be, sort of like, so that they went in thinking they'd have a bit of fun, and they've come out and like Goku and Vegeta are equally as excited watching what's going on, sort of thing. Like they're actually like, for the first time you actually see like, Vegeta cheering on his daughter or something like that. He's like, one arm like slanted over the front of the symbol. He's like really throwing his fist up into the air, like getting overly excited. And then you got Goku, and they're almost like, doing the, how Beerus and Champa react kind of thing when they're watching them fight. I would imagine those two having that chemistry, but watching those fight, like, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, like that's really funny too. Like they're always very competitive with each other, but now it's kind of a children way, but like not in like a really depressing way. Like, yeah. There's a really fine, if you're going to do that, I feel like there's a really fine line to that. But at the same time, like, I just feel like we would just be so excited as fans watching that, just knowing, like, this is going to be the future of the series. It was really weird to put the future of the series in the hands of someone that we had basically never met before.
Yeah.
And had no real characteristic. I mean, basically a carbon copy of Nam.
No, that's what it was, yeah.
And like that's a really weird kind of direction that Dragon Ball Z took at the very end.
Coming soon.
Dragon Ball Kid Nam. Like honestly, like that's what it was, and I feel like that was what leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. And I have to preface this, like I feel like a couple years ago they did a poll, like a big poll based off of people's reactions to series finales, and like good to bad. And number 2 of the worst of all time was Dragon Ball Z. And I kid you not. And I was like, that's weird, because I've never really felt like it's a terrible ending. But I agree with everyone's, like, it's just weird. It's out of nowhere. It doesn't feel conclusive. And
it feels synthetic.
Yeah, it feels yeah, that's a good word. It feels synthetic, and it doesn't really have the same book closure, because even up until the end, Dragon Ball Z kicking and screaming could not let Goku go. And that was one of the things that was really heartfelt about the ending of Dragon Ball GT, I think, for a lot of people, is even though he's like in his prime and all this other stuff, him leaving without saying hi to Pan, just watching that fight between this next generation is heartfelt, because it at least lets Goku go. And I think that's one of the things that Super has to look out for as well. No matter what it does, no matter who it ends up focusing on or what the story ends up becoming, Goku has to basically stop fighting. If Goku doesn't stop fighting, the series doesn't end.
It can't progress either, to an extent.
Yeah.
Because you have to take risks to make things sort of, to keep things fresh and to keep things exciting, you have to take risks. I mean, like, otherwise it becomes stagnant and stale and predictable. And I mean, like, how many people kick up a fuss and go, oh, it's just a Goku Deus Ex Machina kind of thing. Like, okay, alright, fair enough. But the show is about him, you can argue. But at the same time, Dragon Ball Z, although focused on Goku, it wasn't just about Goku. Mm-hmm. There were episodes where Goku wasn't even in it.
Yeah. I agree. And like there's also movies where Goku wasn't really in it very much. I mean, obviously he's in every movie, but he wasn't necessarily the standpoint. The thought is like, I feel that when we have, I feel like as long as any Dragon Ball ending, any series ends with Goku still fighting, there's still story to be told. Considering he's the protagonist.
Yeah, you kind of feel like you're being teased at the end of everything. You're kind of like, oh, okay, there's something else. There's something else. Something's not happened yet.
and that's the thing. Like, yeah, like if the series would have had the guts, and it didn't, like, I just look at it like I wanted Pan and Brawl just because I have my own opinions about like who it should have been to end the series. But like you said before, it could have easily been Trunks and Goten. Yeah, I mean,
they could have done the exact same thing with Trunks and Goten as we're describing here, but you could have built. I mean, the thing that's a shame that they didn't do with Goten and Trunks is the fact that they had already somewhat established their characters to the point where we kind of were all, attached to Goten and Trunks. We knew what they were like as kids, and it would have been so great to see their personalities have almost come to rival that of Goku and Vegeta's as they've got older, but it's suddenly like out of nowhere, they're just grown up. But they're going for it kind of thing. And that's the kind of thing that could have made it so good, and we'd have had the same reactions. You could have had Bra and Pan, like, you know, cheering them from the sidelines sort of thing.
Oh yeah, and like and everyone and all this like throwback to the original series, it could have been either pair it could have been, and it would have been more meaningful. And you have this idea, you know, that Goku's not fighting, Vegeta's not fighting in this tournament. There's like nothing left for their story to be told, because like you're saying earlier, Dragon Ball Z wasn't just about Goku, but Dragon Ball in general has been Goku's story.
Yeah.
And Goku is a fighter as long as he's fighting, like I've said. So it personally, like, that would have been the perfect ending for the series. Let's go off with this new character and fight him later is too open-ended.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Ball Z has already, to be honest, been ballsier than Dragon Ball Super in so many ways, regardless of the sort of, you know, the maturity of somewhat of the stories. But the fact that Goku wasn't always the main focus of certain parts of the story. Like, there were parts of the story where Goku was sidelined to showcase, like, you know, Ultimate Gohan, for instance, and, like, you know, Gohan versus Cell, and there were moments where Goku wasn't the main focus. So, if there was a series that was going to do it better to sort of pass the torch on, because it's almost like Goku had been looking in the entire series to pass the torch on to somebody, and it looked like it was going to be Gohan for most of the series, but then, wow, surprise turn of events at the very end of it, they're passing it on simultaneously. Goku and Vegeta passing it on to the next generation of their own, and that's kind of what was missing. Like, in my opinion, I mean, I know you can kind of go. Well, some people go like, "Oh, well, Oob was the next generation." You're right. Oob is the next generation, but he's on his fucking own. Who wants to watch a series about Oob on his own? Like, you know,
yeah, Oob, like especially like you were saying, like we'd built up around, and it would have been so interesting either way. Like either pair, you know, that. You said Goten and Trunks were pre-established, or even just like throwing pie in the sky, throwing up these two new female characters to throw it up just to be a little bit more diverse and a little bit more of a head scratcher in terms of like, oh, I never saw that coming. But it's somewhat, you know, surprising and kind of heartfelt in its own way. I agree with you completely. I feel that Goku was trying to, the same way that Whis just tries so hard to get a replacement for Beerus. They're like looking for it. Please? Yeah, like looking for it. Goku knowing that he's not going to be around forever is one of the things that kind of comes across really heavily in the Buu arc. Yeah. And it feels more, it would have felt like a bigger closure if we were getting some things like, well, even if we don't really know this character or this character, at least they have ties to everyone else that we're around. And if there is another story around these people, there's going to be some connection. You're right. Oob's completely kind of separated from that. He can literally disappear from the entire group and have his own story, and nobody would really care. And obviously, just watching GT, it seems like Toei didn't even know what to do with him. It's like, oh, this guy's kind of random.
Well, like, there's a big fatal flaw with Oob's character to a standpoint, and this is something that I do really have to kind of stress, because a lot of people keep saying to me, like, you know, well, in many videos that I've done where I've kind of said, oh, well, there should be a new main character and whatnot, and they're like, well, why didn't this guy take over as the main character? Why did Gohan never become the main character? And the big thing that a lot of people don't seem to understand is it's all about how the character is perceived. Now, Goku, if he's going to get a replacement main character for the series, has to be a carbon copy of Goku's character. So it has to be silly, it has to be like badass at the same time, and it also has to be that kind of like, well, the silliness and the funniness can come in together, but it also has to be able to transpire between that and being badass. And they didn't really introduce any other characters that were both funny and badass. And that was the problem. They kept getting this kind of stagnant thing where they kept introducing joke characters or badass characters. And the only character that actually really got anything was Vegeta, because he was the badass character. But then they ushered in Gohan, who was too nervous. And he was always battling the nerves for the entire series. And they did the same thing with Trunks. He got the worries a little bit too much. And Goten was the attempt, really, when you look at it. He was the attempt to bring in the comedic thing, but they made him too comedic, and it watered down his character to somewhat. I mean, I know you're a big Goten fan, but I imagine you might know what I mean in the sense that he never really had a badass moment, if you get what I mean. Like, the fight with Trunks was cool, but it was... You never felt like he was in control, and because of that, he was unable to look badass, and he was more just kind of looking like, I guess he could be one day, sort of thing. Yeah, it was the same with Kid Trunks. He was Kid
Goku.
Yeah, whereas
but not Kid Goku. Like, you're right. He didn't have that. He has a carefree nature, but it's not. There's no like seriousness to it. Yeah. And whenever it got serious, he broke down. The closest he got to it was when Boo killed Chi-Chi, and then he was like, they go into the hyperbolic time chamber or the room of spirit and time, whatever you want to call it, and Trunks is like amazed, and Goten's just like starts training. That was the closest he ever got, and then they just kind of forgot about that as soon as they turned into Gotenks. They were just a gag character. So
yeah, and I mean, like Oob's character was just a carbon copy of Gohan's kid character, where he was like, oh my god, I don't want to fight anybody and all this kind of stuff, and then somebody had to piss him off to make it happen. And like, so that's the kind of thing that always bugged me, because I was sort of looking at it kind of going, well, no, you're making the same mistake that you did there. I'm not emotionally invested in Oob because I've already seen his story once before with Gohan. The only thing is, he's less traumatized. So when he's on Goku's back at the end going, yeah, you're kind of always thinking, well, it shouldn't be you, should it? It really should be his kid.
or his grandchild or something.
Yeah, or some descendant of some form. But yeah, so that's the problem. Like, you couldn't have a series that was just about Oob, because Oob hasn't got the right character for it. He needs that backup, and that was the problem. You need to pass the torch to somebody who could carry the series by themselves. It's like, and I'm sorry to bring this into it, but it's like in wrestling, like there has to be somebody who takes the top spot. You've got to have a Rock or a Stone Cold or a John Cena or a Hulk Hogan. There is no sort of, you can't just kind of like, push that one main guy out and kind of let somebody else just kind of have a go. Somebody has to establish themselves to carry it, and it's the same thing.
No, I completely understand and agree. Like, that's something I wanted. And, they could have gotten around that just by, they already introduced 2 new characters, like we've been talking about, Pan and Brawl. They could have just basically made them carbon copies of Goku and Vegeta if they were a little older.
Well, Pan had the character development that Kid Goku had that would have worked if she'd taken over. She could, if Dragon Ball Super plays their cards right and ends it in a good fashion, Pan can take over from Goku's spot if they portray her as the badass comical character.
But they do. Like, she already is, because she's carefree, and she seriously, like, Pan is carefree for the most part when they show her, but she can serious the fuck up.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, even at the end of Z, with the whole thing with the ice cream and everything like that, it was silly, but if you could honestly believe that, like, she would defend the Earth. Like, you could look her in the eyes and kind of go, okay, well, she's comical, but I can see she's going to kick some ass if I piss her off. And that was where the character should have been. That's why it should have been Goku and Pan at the end, not Goku and Oob. Because Oob, I personally, I look at Oob and he only gives a shit about his family. He's being trained up, and then Goku's just going to take him back, and he's never going to see anybody ever again. Whereas I kind of look at Pan, and I'm more likely to kind of see, like, her actually running around, kind of like seeing somebody in the street that needs help and running over to help them, and then making a joke and being really naive and silly in very many ways. And that's the kind of thing that we wanted as a main character, or should I say need rather than want.
No, I completely agree. And also you could have, it just kind of carrying that over, Brawl could have been a carbon copy of Vegeta, and that's like very stern and very prideful for the most part.
She's got something to prove because she's the younger sister of Trunks. So he's already been developed. Like, she's got everybody already knows Trunks. Everybody loves Trunks and everything like that. They already met him in the future. I mean, they know he's going to grow up into this tall, handsome man who's going to be able to kick some ass. And so she's got something to prove. So she can be resentful of Trunks to some extent, which makes her incredibly prideful within herself, which is a virtual copy of what Vegeta is. So yeah, it could have worked, and they could do it. But
yeah, exactly. I completely agree, man. Like, I completely look at this, and that's how it really should have ended if they had the wherewithal to actually know that, or to see that within their story. And just imagine like what that would have done to Dragon Ball GT.
Yeah. Oh man, it would have been so much better.
If they let Goku sit on the sidelines, but that was never going to happen. They didn't have the right characters for it, and Goku, like always, like one of the hamperings, like the thing that hampered the Buu arc is, like you said, Gohan wasn't really right. Not that Gohan was treated wrongly or Gohan's character was bastardized. He
just wasn't the fit for the main character.
Yeah, he was established as something, and then he completely followed that transition. So at the end of the Cell arc, you're like, okay, I understand like why he did what he did, but time of peace, he's going to fall back into exactly what he was, and he did, and a lot of people hate that. And even Toriyama noticed and realized that this guy can't carry this show or this story, so we need to bring back Goku. Also, Goku was so popular. But that's the thing, like Dragon Ball GT probably could have dealt, or probably could have been better if Pan was established a little better and Brawl was established a little better. Obviously, like we talked about before, GT had no idea what to do with Oob because Oob was kind of uninteresting.
Well, he was a dead-end character because they'd done... I know it sounds daft because somebody's going to, like, comment down below going, Kenji doesn't know what he's talking about, but they had done everything they'd already done with the character because the character was virtually Gohan.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already seen the entire Dragon Ball Z story is watching Gohan turn into the worry little cretin that he was into, like, this cool character towards the end, but he still wasn't. Like, even though they did the comedic stuff with Gohan when he was in high school, which was really all that was for, in my opinion, was to try and stress him to be comical like Goku, but it was too little too late, and the comedy that they were using was actually really awkward, teeny sort of comedy moments, rather than Goku's just straight deadpan, straight-faced naivety. And that's what made Goku funny, was the fact that, like, in Dragon Ball, he just didn't get it. Like, he would just tap people on the crotch to check if they're a boy or a girl or something. It's that fearless nature. And Gohan was not fearless. Gohan was the furthest thing from fearless. And he shouldn't have been because of how strong he was. And it's because of that his character kind of goes a bit bleh sometimes, you know what I mean?
But that's what makes him work for a lot of people. I feel like that's what makes Gohan, if anyone in this entire series, is incredibly relatable. But at the same time, he just doesn't work for the narrative that Dragon Ball has always kind of struck. So
exactly, yeah. I mean, he's the most realistic character out of the entire series. He's the best written character in some sense of the word because of everything that's kind of happened to him. We watch him literally grow up and mature somewhat, but at the same time, that's not what Dragon Ball is. Dragon Ball is Goku. Dragon Ball is the funny mixed with the cool, mixed with the shady moments. But even when Goku is scared, or sorry, should I say, even when Goku is worried, he is not scared.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. With Gohan gets scared, and that makes you feel unconfident, and that makes you kind of go, and the interest in the character kind of drops for me a little bit when I'm sort of looking at it, and I'm supposed to feel pumped and like he can do this, and I'm looking at him and he's being like, oh, I can't do it. I'm like, yeah, and that's why when he turned Super Saiyan 2, that went out the window. He was cool as anything. He was cool as fuck, and then. Like, they literally took it away at the end of the of the thing, but this
was for his character. That was for his character, but like the thing, like that, it's such an awesome scene. But at the same time, you have this character who is timid and everything, has to be forced to have this emotion for the most part in order to protect people, and then we get over that hurdle, and then Gohan has to basically go over that hurdle again in that fight, and. It makes sense for Gohan's character. That's just how Gohan is, his personality-wise. Like you said, like he's timid. He doesn't understand. He doesn't have confidence in himself, even though he absolutely should. It makes him relatable. But
may we throw in the idea that this is always why he is going to return to being a bookworm? No, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but I mean it is always why he's going to do it, because he is timid and he is relatively scared, and that. That's why he's always going to go back to.
It's how I remember right before the Fakatsu no F arc. Goku goes with Whis, and Chi-Chi's like freaking out, and he's like, "Mom, like let him go. Dad has to protect us." It's like he knows how strong he is, and that just never really made a whole lot of sense to me. Like, Gohan should be able to protect his loved ones, and yet he's a grown adult with a child now, and he's still depending on his father. And I feel like that is very much what Gohan's character is. Like you said, he's scared. He kind of keeps going back to who he is, and his whole life, which is made really apparent in Dragon Ball, or throughout Dragon Ball Z, is Gohan always protects. And Gohan always relies on Goku. And Super has kind of dealt on that a lot just because of its focus, but we've seen it a lot throughout Dragon Ball Z and Super is, Bulma, Yajirobe, Gohan, Chi-Chi. Everyone always relies on Goku. Where is Goku? And it's because Goku fills that narrative space. He doesn't necessarily grow like all the other characters do because he's a protagonist. He doesn't necessarily have the ability to. If Goku grows the same way that Gohan or Piccolo or Vegeta grows, then the show would not even adapt. I feel like it would fall on its face.
Well, it's like when you watch a sitcom or something and the main character leaves, and then they just kind of, they try and either usher somebody else in, and they try and fill that gap in a similar sense, but you can never recreate the exact same thing that main character had. It's like, I don't know, so that 70s show cut Eric out of it for the last season, and it was the last season for a reason. And then Scrubs tried to do it, where they tried to do a series that didn't have Zach Braff in it, and it fell flat on its face.
Or The Office without Steve Carell.
Exactly. There are so many of these things that just don't work unless you've got an exact carbon copy character that can, successfully pass the torch. And there has to be a need and want to pass the torch at the same time, as opposed to just kind of writing it in at the end. So this is why Oob isn't really the best ending, because Toriyama had no intention of trying to continue the story, because he was just trying to end it. And because of that, he didn't actually I don't feel like he put too much stock into how he made Oob come across, because it wasn't really important, because the show was ending. So that's kind of, to me, where it was like, well, this is an interesting way of wrapping it up. Why not? As opposed to thinking, well, how could this continue if I did that? And that's why it isn't exactly the best, well-received ending, in my opinion, anyway.
No, I understand where you're coming from, and I feel like hopefully people listen this long. It's a little longer than I think we intended, but honestly, interesting discussion. Seriously, I've never really thought of it in these particular terms, but I always just kind of thought that if it was going to end, it should have ended with, like we talked about, Goten and Trunks or Pan and Brawl, just to kind of usher in the new individuals that were going to kind of be able to have the torch passed to them. But breaking it down even further, like you were talking about, in terms of what is the archetype that makes this show stable? And it's always been Goku. So, and having a carbon copy of him, or even not, I mean, Gohan could have, like we talked about, Gohan could have been the protagonist of the show or the series, but it would have changed drastically, and it wouldn't necessarily be what Dragon Ball has always been. So,
yeah, no, I understand.
So, anyway, guys, I think we're going to leave it at that.
Ready.
Yeah, me too. But guys, we're going to leave it at that, and tell us what y'all think in the comment section below. Kanji, please go check him out. His link will be in the description below, hopefully on the video as well. And y'all should definitely go check him out. He makes some amazing content, Dragon Ball related, very funny stuff. Go check out Heel Kanji, guys. It's really funny. Anyway, we're gonna catch y'all in the next video. Bye.